Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miry. I'm a managing director and the co-owner of EER Global. We are a provider of global headhunting solutions for international companies, and we've been around for 15 years. And we tend to share our knowledge with our ecosystem, because we want to make sure that when people go into a different territory, this time Germany, they actually know what they're doing. And today, as you know, we're going to cover how to hire and how to maintain and how to deal in general with employees in Germany. So we do have two main speakers today. The first one, and each one of them will introduce herself, but I'll just make a short intro. The first one is Jolya Forrester. She's a senior headhunter and recruiter in EER Global, and she's been with us for 8 years. We also have another person who is an Israeli who lives in Germany, in Berlin. Her name is Yafat, and she's a senior people operation specialist and works in HR in Berlin. She is going to cover more the part about hiring, and about employing, and about employment law. And Julia is going to cover the part of hiring and how to do it in the right way. So I'm going to share my screen with you. It will be like a semi-discussion plus a presentation that we can share with you after today's webinar. So just bear with me, and we're going to start. So I would like to start with some questions to you. First of all, about, the start. So first of all, you know, a foreign company wants to go into the German market, Julia. And as a German person, which is why we kind of brought you to be the main speaker in this event, doing business with Israeli clients for so many years, why should an Israeli or any foreign company should hire people in Germany? What kind of people should one expect or find in Germany from your perspective?
Do you want me to introduce myself, or are we?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, please.
Okay. So hi, everyone. My name is Julia. I was born in Germany. I've been living in Ireland for the last 15 years. I lived in the States, and I have been working in recruitment, in international recruitment, for the last 15 years. Initially, I've recruited for all the major American multinationals here in Ireland for their European hubs across 14 European languages. And 8 years ago, I went on a different journey with Miry and Oded, specializing in recruiting for Israeli companies. So very much involved in that ecosystem, bridging the gap between Israeli demands and then, of course, the local markets, with a focus on Germany. And I specifically focus on Germany, but I cover, everywhere on the globe. So that's my experience. And so what kind of employees should you hire in Germany? Well, just looking at, the market itself, Germany is the biggest continental market in Europe, 85 million people, and it's the 4th largest economy in Europe. So it's a huge opportunity to sell into the German market. So any sales, business development, account manager roles, marketing positions would be well suited to the market. Of course, if you have a native German speaker in the market, you can also access the other 2 German-speaking markets in Austria and Switzerland. That gives you another 20 million. So, over 100 million people, which is, I think, 25% or 22% of the European population. So that's quite a big chunk. If you're looking to sell your services or your products, strategically, that would be a good place to recruit. The other fact is that the way Germans live, 75% of Germans live in urban centers. We have Berlin with 3.5 million people, Hamburg, Munich, and Cologne. So you have a large number of people in the urban centers. Most younger people speak English well, so that's a good candidate pool to access. And I found a stat there that although Germans work less than other people, because the time management is quite crucial, people want work-life balance. So, it's the 9 to 5 typical, they actually are more productive. And I'll tell you later why they're more productive, just in relation to the culture. But that would be sort of a summary of why we believe that those would be suitable positions for the market in Germany. Not to say that it's easy to recruit these positions, but they make sense in the context of the market.
Okay. Julia, what about people that are not in sales and marketing? Is there any point to establish any manufacturing environment facility or even an R&D center? Is there a point?
Well, just from a personal perspective, knowing the German market, any technical roles, software development, etc. I mean, I finished my studies over 20 years ago, and even at that time, companies were struggling to hire technical people. And again, I'll go into that later, why we have a lack of qualified and skilled workers in that space. But on a personal note, I would probably locate any technical roles in other countries, because you will struggle to find specifically native speaking Germans. A lot of these positions have been filled with Indians, with Eastern Europeans over the last 20 years. So, even if you have a very technical role, most of the people you're going to find are probably going to be foreigners living in Germany. They probably have worked in English, so they don't speak German, because we have these requirements from time to time. And then on the manufacturing side, again, I think manufacturing costs in Germany are very high. It's a unionized environment. People have very high social contributions in addition to the salary. So again, it wouldn't be, from my perspective, the ideal market to establish a manufacturing side. Because you're going to be in competition. And also the other problem is that a lot of people that work in that sector in manufacturing don't actually speak English. So that would be a challenge as well.
I see. So if you need to hire like an IT person in Germany, most likely he wouldn't speak German, which doesn't make any advantage for you to hire them in Germany. You could easily hire them if it's a remote position anywhere else in Europe or even in Israel, for that matter. Okay. So let's talk about challenges. What would you say are the main challenges? We said it's not so easy to hire in Germany. What are the main challenges?
If you just go back one slide, I just want to see if I covered everything. So the challenge is basically, and I know the perception is that everybody in Germany speaks English, but in fact, only 56% of Germans speak fluent English. This is due to the education system. We have a dual education system, which is very much targeted to the manufacturing and construction sector. So what that means is that not everybody has actually entry qualification for university. We separate people at the age of 15, 16. So we have a group of people that will go into an apprenticeship between the ages of 16 and 19. They never see the inside of a university. And I have figures there later. It used to be, when I qualified, it was only 19% of people that actually had a third level education. This has risen to 28% in 2016, I believe, and now it's around 32%, which is still less than other countries. I know here in Ireland, it's around 60%. So you have a much more qualified workforce here. But anyway, so only 56% of people are English speaking. Huge challenge, sometimes a big surprise for our clients. Ghosting has increased in 2022. They did a survey amongst recruiters, and I think 60% of recruiters said that they experience more and more ghosting. Now, Germany has always been a difficult market to recruit because Germans are very risk adverse. They like stability, like safety. They don't really like moving within Germany. And so again, coming in and thinking that people are just going to jump their job for a perceived better opportunity is difficult. And again, because we have so many companies looking for German speakers in the market, they have literally to choose from. I mean, I know that a few of the people that I've contacted, they get contacted 3 times a week with different opportunities. So we talked about the manufacturing costs, lack of skilled workers in engineering and IT. And then I talked about the foreigners that don't speak German and the Germans that don't speak English if they're older IT staff. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I did a research just on numbers because, again, some clients, and coming from Israel is a small country, but obviously there is a huge amount of people that are qualified in different fields. It's much easier to go from one profession to another profession. This is not the case in Germany. You kind of start a career and that's kind of what you stick with. So of the 85 million people, there's only 1.1 million people who actually work in IT. So, and that includes any hardware, software companies, software as a service, etc. That's a tiny percentage, and the working population is around 50%. So we have about 40, or less than 50. So we have about 45 million people in the workforce. And of those 45 million, only 1.1 million people work in IT. I think that's a crucial number to keep in mind, because again, I have clients who think there's an endless pool of candidates because it's a large population. But actually, in fact, we're dealing with a tiny market of people. The second thing that's a challenge, I mentioned it, is the dual education system. Only 32% hold a third level degree. So again, we have a lot of clients who come in, they want a bachelor, a master's degree, qualified, fluent English and all these things, but it's actually a challenge. Long-term retention of employees, again, we have a lot of people that get headhunted. Now, although there is a sort of a hesitancy to move from role to role, you know, we need to make sure as a company coming into the market that we really look at the retention of the employees, because Germans want stability, they want long-term engagement, and that's, I think, a crucial part. You recruit the people, but then the retention is the crucial part. The other thing I want to talk about is that we have a lot of people, clients that come in and say, oh, I want a person fluent English, native German speaker. I want them to have experience with a global company, and it has to be a small company. The problem is, again, the pool isn't that huge, because in fact, 99% of German firms belong to the small, medium enterprise sector with a 60% of total workforce. What does that mean? That means that 60% of people work for a German-based small, medium-sized company. So if I have a client who wants someone from a startup, and it has to be an international company, they have to be fluent in English, we're cutting out large parts of the population just by adding all these requirements, because most people in Germany work for German companies. They speak German, but they haven't worked for an international company. So again, that's something to keep in mind as you're competing with German companies locally, where the candidate sees a bigger connection, obviously, to the German employer rather than an international company. And I just wanted to make that point, because I didn't actually know that myself before I started preparing this presentation. But that, I think, is a crucial point. Okay.
Okay. So, you know, for some of the people that are here with us in this webinar, it may be the first time, you know, doing any type of business in Germany. Some of them already have some experience, but still it's a very different culture. The Israeli culture is different to any other culture anyway. And I would like to ask you, you know, as a German person working for a, you know, a company that has a lot of business with Israel, you've seen a lot of the mistakes that, you know, we personally do and our clients. And I would like to ask you if you can mention like few of the do's and don'ts that you would say that one must do when you deal with the hiring in Germany.
Yeah, Miri, sorry, with your permission, I'll just respond to there.
Yes, please. Yeah, because I'm sharing my screen, I cannot look at it.
Yeah, so the IT includes the salespeople. It's anyone. So the sectors are split up into construction, service industry, government, kind of nonprofit, and then IT. And IT is anyone working in IT. So not just developers, it's sales, account, anybody working for a software, a hardware company, telecommunications company, networking company, any company that would be consider high tech. That 1.1 million people. Okay, that includes the salespeople. I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you. Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Do's and don'ts with German candidates. Now, again, what I've noticed sometimes is, and again, Germans don't have a lot of patience for that kind of sort of, I don't want to say carry on, but so work practices, and I had that conversation actually with Miri and Odette at some stage, because they said, Julia, you need to have more fun. You're coming in, you're very serious, and you're just working. And I was very confused, because I've never been asked to have fun at work. Work is work, and fun is outside of work. Now, I understand that obviously when we have fun at work, we enjoy ourselves more, but that's not the German mentality necessarily. I know this is changing now, but you're still dealing with a large part of the population my age. I'm in my 40s, 50, 60-year-olds may be limited, but you know, you're still dealing with a large part of the population who are not used to this sort of fun work atmosphere. So working practices are formal and professional. Emails need to be professional. You know, the approach needs to be professional. There is a very strict separation between, and again, I'm generalizing here, I'm talking, about the larger part of, I mean, most people in Germany are older. The average age, I think, is 40, around 40 or late 30s. Those are the people I'm talking about. I'm not talking about 22-year-olds or 28-year-olds, necessarily. And I know there is a large startup culture, but personal questions in interviews are not common, about family, about even starting the interview and saying, oh, how is the weather? That is very confusing to a German person, because you want to talk business. You have your time scheduled for the interview and you want to focus on that. Small talk, again, I think that's why German people are more productive than other people, because we don't do small talk. We go to work and we work, and then we go home and then we can do small talk. I think a very important pointer for those that haven't worked with the German market: stick to your appointments. If your interview is at 2 p.m., log in 2-3 minutes before 2 p.m. Don't log in 2 or 3 minutes after 2 p.m. because you're going to be late. And 5 minutes is super late. 1 minute is, the person is probably already a little bit pissed off, so to speak. So really, and I mean, that's a German value. You can say, oh, the person needs to be flexible, but you're recruiting in the German market, and punctuality is a German value. And you need to reciprocate that value if you want to engage with people in the German market. That's just the way it is. I would love to know the number of candidates we've lost in the process with our clients just because interviews were rescheduled last minute, person didn't show up, the link wasn't working, the person was doing something else while they were speaking. I got this feedback actually the other day from a candidate in Germany that the hiring manager interviewing them was actually doing something else on their phone while they were interviewing them. That's that's just not acceptable. So very professional, very respectful. Certifications, diplomas, hierarchy is very, very important. So I just wanted to highlight that, yeah.
Julia, one question that I would like to ask you about German people. So is there, like, for us, the Israelis, as you know, we're very warm. So should we expect no warm relationship with a German person, or is there a light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, can we try something? I mean, for me, it's really difficult. You already know that.
I know that. I think it just needs a little bit of time. And I know when I first started working with you, Miri, I know the first time we met, we gave each other hugs, etc. This is kind of a no-no in a German work relationship. But I think we met after about 9 months. So I was already used to the warmth of the culture, and I could be a little bit more myself. But I think you need to give the person a bit of a lead time so that they can suss out the culture and I mean, the other thing is I always tend to recruit people that have a little bit of that personality despite being German. So, that's something we can do as a company. We can pre-screen people, and we can find the most fun German person or the most open German person in the pool. But again, because a lot of people are used to the German work environment, because of the way the German market is made up, a lot of people haven't been exposed to this international culture where everything is a little bit more informal. But I mean, I have changed massively, and Miri, you can probably attest to that. I live in Ireland, so I had to get used to that culture. And, I've been to Israel 3 or 4 times. So, you get used to it, but I think it just needs a little bit of time, because you are who you are as a person. You can't change from one day to the next. That doesn't mean the person can't be your most brilliant employee.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Yfat, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just have a very good example for this, because I was also very shocked at the beginning when I started working with German colleagues. And I remember one German colleague that I had, he was working in finance, a very analytic person. And I remember he told me, but please send it to me by tomorrow, end of the day, because I'm going on vacation. And I said, oh, great, where are you going? And he was like, yeah, somewhere. Okay, just let's talk. He was so surprised for my question. Nobody asks, where are you going? You can say, like, enjoy on your vacation. And we had so many occasions that we worked together. So today he's really open with it. It just takes time. He's like telling me where he's going. He's telling me stories about his kids, So it's not like, I wouldn't say the German population is cold. it just takes them more time. But when they
So we
open,
shouldn't be afraid.
then they open. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw. We need to give them some time to melt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably. Okay. So Julia, more do's and don'ts.
Yes, so just quickly, because I know we have a schedule for the next hour and a half. So again, when you meet someone, and even if you meet them for the third or fourth time, maybe initially, you know, up for a handshake rather than a hug, because I think, and again, this comes back to the German work culture, you want to be seen as professional. You want to be seen as, you know, I mean, even going for a beer after work is not very common. Unless you've been with the company, but even people that have been with the same company for 10 years, I know they still use the formal last name in when they speak to each other. They don't use the first name, and it's just something that takes time, you know, because that's our culture. Again, what I see a lot of times, and this is very confusing to German people, because German people like information, they like data, they want to have transparency. I found sometimes in the process, someone sends a job description and then halfway through the process, they're like, oh, actually, we've changed it. Or they've changed the reporting structure, or, you know, to a German person that appears unorganized, messy, not very trusting. So again, I would recommend that, you know, when you go into the German market, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be serious. I had a client last year, actually, and I filled the position, luckily, but they didn't know anything. They didn't know the location. They didn't know where they were going to have their future operating center. They didn't have any criteria to give to the candidate. And I was supposed to find someone that was just going to throw themselves into this unknown. Germans don't like the unknown. We want to know exactly. And again, this also when you get to the negotiation process, sometimes my Israeli clients are surprised when the German person sends back the contract 3 or 4 times. They're like, what's the problem? Why, you know, what? He's very fussy about every item in the contract. And it's, yeah, because we want to know what we're supposed to be doing. We want to know when, where, how, what, so that we have something to go with. Because again, that safety, security, trust, reliability, loyalty, and you're getting all of that back. But that's what we need from our employer. We don't like this back and forth and chaotic. It's very suspicious to a German person. So again, before you go in, and also if somebody comes back and has 3 or 4 or 5 questions for the contract, don't think he's not interested. He's actually very interested. He just wants to tick all his T's and cross his T's and dots his I's, because he wants to be the best employee that you can get. And he wants to make sure he understands everything before the process. So always be honest and transparent, even if you're in a position where you don't really know what's going on, or you, let's say in the interview process, you need a little bit of a bigger window because you need to coordinate other people. Just tell the candidate, don't let them hanging without any feedback. Just be open and transparent and say, listen, at the moment, this is our status, but we want to proceed with this. And this goes also for the interview structure. I always ask my clients in the initial kickoff call, what is the exact interview process? And sometimes I'm surprised that they haven't even thought about this. In Germany, you need to give exactly how many interviews. When are these interviews going to happen? How many days between the interviews? Don't leave more than 3 or 4 days between interviews. People are going to feel like you're not interested. And we don't have this mentality that we need to prove to someone that we're interested in them. It's the other way around, because the German market is different. People are being sought after. You need to show that you're interested in the candidate. So a clear structure and a plan for interviews. And if you say you do 4 interviews, don't come back and say, oh, we want this person to do an assessment center, and now we want them to talk to this person and this person. No, you're going to lose the candidate. So I would always say 3 to 4 interviews, keep it short and sweet and stick to the plan, and be very clear. Even when you finish the first call and you know you want to proceed, tell the candidate already so that they can mentally prepare. We will invite you for another interview in 1 week time. That's good enough. Yeah.
I have a question from the crowd. Ravit is asking, a lot of the times she's saying candidate ask her to provide them with feedback about how the interview went. Is it something common for German candidates? Is it mandatory to provide specific feedback after an interview?
Well, I think it's common to give feedback to a candidate, you know, like, oh, I was very impressed with your details, and, you know, but I would keep it very general, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you expose yourself and they'll come back to you. So, I mean, I would just keep it very general. When people ask me, I just say, you know, I really enjoy talking to you. I think you have relevant experience. I will talk to the hiring manager to see if he's interested in speaking with you. And just to give him a little bit, because I think every interview is seen as interview practice. And I think a little bit what is still common in Germany is you want to fit yourself to the position rather than being yourself and then letting the employer decide if you fit them. You know, and I always say to candidates and employers, interviewing is like dating. You know, if you fake yourself, you're never going to find the right person. And if you can be yourself, and if you just be yourself, and then you see first interview, second interview, third interview, can we come together? Can this somehow work? So that would be what I would say. Keep it general. And then Debbie is asking, is there a specific way to reach out to candidates?
Yeah. Do you want to cover it now or in the slide about hiring? Up to you.
Yeah. If you just remind me. Yeah.
I will remind you.
So again, work culture in Germany, punctuality, and for those that logged in early today, well done. You're going to be successful in the German market. You're going to make a good impression. It's not even about making a good impression. You're just meeting the neutral standard of being on time. Reliability, again, if you say you're going to be somewhere, if you say you're going to reach out to someone by close of business on Thursday, do it. Don't leave it. Do it. If you can't reach out to them, email them, let them know, or let the recruiter know, and we will inform the candidate. But keep that communication going. It's very important. That's just part of being professional. And I do feel that sometimes, from a German perspective, there is a little bit of lack of that reliability and professionalism that we consider professionalism. And then this is not a criticism, but that could be an obstacle to the recruiting process. Miri, will you just, so you just went to the next one.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. We talked about stable, secure, safe environment, separation of work and free time. We talked about the hierarchical organizational culture. I can mention that again. So, you know, you wouldn't necessarily give your boss a hug or go for a beer with them, you know, and again, maybe that will come after time, but, you know, I think I would just leave it at the start, just to give the person time to come out of their shell, because we're just not used to it. It's not a requirement in our work environment. Loyalty, fairness, transparency, again, very important. Always back up claims with data. That refers to, again, if you have a conversation with a candidate and they ask you for more information, or there is a contradiction in the job description, don't just brush over it, address it, look it up, come back, provide more information. This goes again to the contract, to the employment contract. If the person wants more information, you know, what does that section in the contract mean? Don't think that they're being difficult or picky. They just want to have all the information. I mean, people are always surprised when they give me even a rental contract, or even when I go scuba diving or whatever, I always read all the small print. And they laugh and they say, where are you from? And I say, I'm German. And they say, haha, all the Germans always read all. I would never sign a paper without reading everything. And people think that's hilarious, but I would never sign something if I don't know what's on the piece of paper. So from my perspective, it's like nonsensical to sign something and not read it. So again, just think of that when you deal with German people. And the next slide, Miri, thank you. Stick to the job description. We already said that. That's very important. I think that's also a little bit to do with trust. You know, they don't want to feel that you're kind of scheming in the background. Except the fact that Germans love to plan and research. Again, this goes back to the data, providing data. We're not great at improvising. Now, I know that that's obviously a huge part of the Israeli startup culture, and that's definitely something that can be learned if that's the goal. But what I always say is, and again, I said this to Miri, German people are more, and I learned how to do it differently once I understood where Miri and Odette were coming from. But my way of preparing for something would be, I do research, I plan, and then I have my plan. And after a week, Miri is like, what are you doing? Are you working on it? And I'm like, yeah, I've been working on it for the week. And she says, I don't see any result. And I said, but I planned and I made my plan and now I know what to do. Of course, that doesn't work, because once you have the plan a week later, your criteria has already changed. and you might be working to something that is no longer relevant. I understand that now. So for me, every day I prioritize, and I look at the information and I prioritize and I prioritize. And again, this is something once we understand where Israelis are coming from and the Israeli culture, I think it's easier for us then to adapt. But that's just in our brains. That's how we work. We always make a plan and then we stick to the plan. And we had clients complain about employees because they couldn't see any productivity or they didn't update them every day. And I didn't know that that was a thing, because we would just go off for a week and do our thing and then come back. And I had to learn that even communicating every day and saying, okay, Miri, today I did this, or I'm planning to do this today, really, really helps with our communication. And Miri is happy and goes off and knows exactly that I'm on the ball. Struggling with a lack of direction. Again, this is more about clarity, what you want, what you expect. You need to be very clear about that before you engage with a German person. We don't really like a lot of changes. So again, once they work for you, that's something you can incorporate maybe in the development plan, or that might, once they understand your mission and your culture and your vision, that might come. But I think in the interview process, I think you need to kind of stick to your schedule and then want a lot of information and detail. We already talked about that.
Okay, so obviously this year we've seen massive changes in the world and hence the recruitment industry. So what do you see would be the trends in recruitment for the next year?
Yeah, so I'm working on positions at the moment in Berlin. So you think, oh, Berlin is full of people, there's lots of people. Well, actually, I left Berlin. I was living in Berlin. Now, this is 15 years ago, because there were no jobs in Berlin. And this is only just slowly changing. And in fact, a lot of the people that work in the IT sector in Germany are not native Germans. So you actually don't find a huge market. Then you find the few Germans, they left Berlin and moved into the surroundings of Berlin because they found a nice house, or rents are too high in Berlin at this moment, or whatever. And now I'm ringing them, contacting them, hey, I have a great opportunity. I want you to go into the city center every day, or at least 3 days a week. Now, hybrid roles are, I would say that's the absolute minimum. It would be very difficult to get someone to go to the office every day, travel an hour on the train. Again, work-life balance is very important to German people, but that's definitely a trend that we've been seeing over the last 2 years. Working 100% remote is very popular because, again, you're saving 2 hours a day. You're a better employee because you're relaxed. You can work from home. You can have that work-life balance. The other thing is, and I think it's maybe, I don't know, Miri, if you agree, but I've seen a little bit of a change in that, maybe because the Israeli market changed as well. But about, I would say 3-4 years ago, the Israeli clients would come to me and say, oh, we want someone that goes the extra mile. Now, I don't know if you all have heard of the quiet quitting. Quiet quitting is basically saying candidates don't want to work for free anymore. You can call it the extra mile, but it's actually essentially you're asking them to work for free over their hours, and they don't want to do it. And German people in particular, I think, are very much, again, we're punctual. You go to work at 9 and you leave at 5. And you need to try to squeeze out whatever you can get in those 8 or 9 hours. Because once we're not at work anymore, we're not in work mode. And that relates also to emails and to phone calls. I know there's a law. WhatsApp, a law in Spain, is it Spain or Portugal, where the employers, they're legally forbidden to contact people after work hours. Now, we don't have that law in Germany, but if you want to contact a German person after 5 o'clock at the weekend, you're not going to get a reply.
Yeah.
So the best.
But Julia, is it still true, bearing in mind the current economic downturn, or is it still the case?
I think culturally that's still the case.
Right.
Like if you have a bank holiday, some of my clients will say, yeah, but he's at home, he can check his emails, or Christmas or Easter, they're at home, they can take a phone call. I don't ask my candidates, and I actually never get an offer from a candidate to do an interview when they're on holidays or when they're for Christmas or Easter, because that's not their work. So don't expect them when they say, oh, I'm going. Like I had a candidate last year, he went on holidays for 3 weeks. I couldn't get an interview from him for 3 weeks. And I respected that, because that doesn't show he's lazy. It's just he is on holidays and he will come back to the interview after 3 weeks. So that's maybe not ideal, but again, it's something you need to keep in mind when you deal with German candidates, just to respect that.
Thanks, Julia. Yfat, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add the thing about the WhatsApp, no WhatsApp. I mean, no communication in WhatsApp. There's Slack or Teams or whatever. Very not common to reach out to someone on their personal number. But also, I would say the ones who are, taking the extra mile and working outside of working hours, they would normally would also adjust the email to be sent on an hour. Exactly. So even if you're sending an email outside of the working hour, make sure that he receives it on a working hour.
Yeah. It's a good tip. Thank you. Okay. So let's talk about tachlis in Hebrew. Like, how do we actually do it? We want to hire in Germany. So what are the main job boards and how do you work with them in Germany, Julia?
Yes. So, of course, LinkedIn is a global tool that we can use, but in some economies, you are actually cutting out a large part of the population, by using LinkedIn only. If you have that availability, and I'm talking about obviously the highest version of LinkedIn where you have access to everyone. In Germany, we have a networking platform called Xing, which is any professional German person will be on that platform. Anyone that works, again, in a higher position. I mean, you wouldn't find necessarily administrators or bookkeepers on it. It's more for people with a university degree, people that work maybe in sales and do a little bit of business development on Xing. You can advertise your jobs on Xing and reach out to people. You can send a connection request. Now, it's not as fluid as LinkedIn. It's a little bit more clunky, but you have to be based in Germany to have a profile. So we're obviously signed up. I have my own profile because I've been a member of Xing for the last, 25 years. So that would be a large part of the work that we do. It's time consuming, but it's a good way of accessing candidates that are not on LinkedIn. And again, it comes back to the fact that 99% of small, medium enterprises are actually German-based businesses. So why would they be on LinkedIn? They're not looking for a job in an international company. They're in Germany, so they network in Germany. So again, even just expanding the search, saying, okay, even if this person has experience, speaks fluent English, has experience with a German company, could they still be a relevant candidate for us if we found them on Xing? They don't have a LinkedIn profile. Because I think sometimes my clients are also suspicious if someone doesn't have a LinkedIn profile. And it's like, well, LinkedIn doesn't have the same value in every candidate market. Then we have Indeed, of course. That's more for lower level positions. Again, high time consuming, I would say. You get a high volume of inbound applications. Not all of them are relevant. I usually say between 2% and 3% would actually be relevant. So of course, a recruiter spends their full time on sifting through that information. But you're never going to get more than 2 or 3% from my personal 15 years experience. Stepstone is a big one. It's expensive, but that's a good one to attract people. You'd find people are signed up for notifications. And now I'm talking about the active job seekers. What we do at EER Global, we work a lot with passive job seekers. So people that aren't looking. So, job boards wouldn't be the main part of what we do. But again, if you're relying on that, Stepstone, and I think it's called Monster in the international version, I think they're combined. The German one is Stepstone, and then I think it's part of Monster.
Okay. So let's talk about, most of the people would use an agency like a local or an international headhunting agency like us. So what do you think a person should notice when he comes to do some kind of a business and business relationship with an agency?
Yeah, let me just respond to Ravit. So if I sent an email to a candidate not on working time, Sundays, for example, would it be considered rude? I don't think it would be considered rude, but I think it would be preferred if you can schedule it for a Monday morning or, a daytime. Because I think then there is the added pressure, for them to answer on a Sunday, and then, we wouldn't really want to do that, or that feeling that they're late if they reply on Tuesday, So I think I would just keep it to the working times. And then is an option to join Xing outside of Germany.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There is, but it has to be in German. So you can't have you can, I guess, in English, but no one will look at it.
Yeah, you need to have a German profile because it's a German-speaking platform.
Yeah, and it's PPC, don't forget. It means that every advertising you do is paid per click, unlike like posting an advert.
Yeah, so you can have a profile and you can use the profile. So you can get someone to, I suppose, put up a profile in German, and then you just advertise your job. You can use it as a job platform. So this is to Josh and Michael, just as an answer to that.
Okay.
So how would you work with a local German headhunting company? Now, from my own perspective, we use a partner network. So in every country we go to, in addition to approaching passive job seekers, engaging active job seekers on the job boards, we also work with a partner network. So we have an established network of people that we work with that are in country, where we feel that they kind of understand what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and they can almost incorporate the cultural gap into their search. Now, sometimes when we onboard a new partner, my personal experience is they want a lot of information. So it's that understanding of the culture, and there's a lot of question, why is it like this? Or where's the job description? Can you confirm the following? And they have like 20 questions. And I don't even have all these answers, because when I speak to my clients, I don't need to have literally everything covered in order for me to identify a suitable candidate. I mean, it's literally up to, the working hours and everything. They cover everything, because that's what German people want to know when they sign a contract. They want to know everything, but it's almost a little bit too much, because all I want them to do is find me a salesperson in a software as a service company that speaks German and is interested in a new job opportunity. You don't need to know all the information. And again, our clients don't share every single thing with us. We work off a very limited spec in terms of the candidate. So so that I struggle that person, and I think Israeli companies would struggle with that a little bit, to provide so much upfront information about the value of the company and this and that and whatever, when you don't really know and have that relationship. I think a lot of people can't deal with the back and forth and changing and this, and even engaging with the Israeli client then in terms of setting up calls, and I think that's very difficult. Also, I think some of the local agencies, they're used to a much longer time frame in terms of recruiting, because of course in Germany we have 3 to 6 months notice period. So they might go off and think they're being very active, but you might hear from them for 4 weeks, and so we know our clients want to hear from us every week. So we have a catch-up call every week. We check in, and even if we don't have a result, we catch up, we say, what can we change? How can we? So we're always on the ball, because that's what our clients want. So I think that could be a little bit of a challenge. They might find the Israeli culture a little bit disorganized, when somebody schedules a meeting. And I mean, I'm doing it now. I'm thinking, sure, I can just reschedule the meeting, because I reschedule with my clients, and I've been given out to by my German partners, for rescheduling, and are you still interested? And, are you ghosting me? And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be flexible. So yeah, we already talked about the information up front, and then usually they work on a retainer model, which is obviously at a higher cost to the client. So that would be my summary for working with people in the German market.
Yeah. So if you work with a company like us, where we have like international headhunters and German people and Israelis, I think we have a very good understanding of the differences between the culture, and we can help in that matter. So how should the hiring process look like in your view, Julia?
Yeah, so I think I already related to it earlier. I think it's very important to set expectations in the first interview. So when I talk to my clients, I always want them to tell me exactly who's the person talking to in the first interview. Preferably it's the hiring manager. We don't want to waste candidates' time doing, I interview them, then they speak to HR, and only then they speak to the hiring manager, and then they still have to speak to the VP and then the CEO. So we're already looking at 5 interviews. Germans don't have time for that. Every interview is a time investment. And in fact, the candidate I interviewed, or that gave me feedback on the interview, he actually felt that the hiring manager was wasting his time, and he was a little bit annoyed about that. So really think about it. Don't expect to get more than 3 hours off your German candidate in terms of interview time. So get 2 people on a call. Do a panel. If you need to have
intimidating, Julia, for them?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, it's on video, but I think it's the time restraint, or the time commitment is a huge thing. You're not going to go through 6 interviews, And I've actually had a candidate tell me a few years ago, he said, my God, like not even Google do 7 interviews. You know, I mean, it was just, he had to do 7 interviews. It was actually ridiculous. So be organized. Think about it up advanced. Okay, can the HR interview happen at the end? What are you actually discussing in the HR interview that you haven't discussed before? Just be a little bit more organized. Outline the stages beforehand. So this is what I do when I speak to my candidates. I say, okay, in the first call, you're speaking to Shosh. In the second one, to Michal. She's the director of sales in EMEA. And then you're speaking to the CEO. That's important. That might be a face-to-face interview. So we might have you travel. You know, and just be very concise, stick to the schedule. Again, think about it in advance. If you like a candidate and you're already on the phone with them, rather than going away, then waiting a week, having a meeting, and then coming back with feedback to me a week after saying, yeah, we want to go to the next stage. We can interview him in 1 week. It would be better to talk directly after the interview or while you're on the phone to the candidate to say, look, we want to interview you in 2 weeks' time because we like you. And set up the interview. A one week notice is not a very long time for a German candidate, so they will be patient about that. What I see sometimes is clients ringing me and saying, can you speak tomorrow, after they left him hanging for 10 days. So that's not a good practice. German people like a little bit of advance notice. They want to prepare for the interview. It's an important appointment to them. So give them 4 to 5 days notice. And even if you can't interview them for 2 weeks, set the appointment. That would be my recommendation. The other thing I want to touch on is the reference check. So we don't go and do reference checks behind the candidate's back. That's actually not legal in Germany. What I always say to my clients is, you also, like, if I'm still in a job and you want to interview my boss, my current boss, obviously you can't interview them before I've actually told them that I'm looking for a job. So what I always say to people is, make a verbal offer subject to reference check. So you offer the position to the candidate, and then you take the references. And if you're not happy with the references, you can withdraw that verbal job offer. If you're happy with the references, the candidate is already prepared, you're interested, you want them, they're hot, they're engaged with you, rather than I see sometimes, especially in the later stages of the process, that it just takes ages to get organized, and then I understand everybody is busy and the HR people are busy and they can't take the references, but you need to just tie it then at the end of the process, because again, I'd love to actually know what the fallout rate is in the German market at that stage. I would say it's probably around 20%. So if we've done all this work to find a really good candidate and then they're just like, well, the company is not interested because they're not sticking to the schedule, that would be kind of a pity. So that would be a big thing.
Okay.
So is it okay to speak with the candidates over the phone, or do they prefer only emails?
You need to ask maybe if it's relation to arranging the interview or not. I don't know.
I would always say, so there is actually a lot of people, I have friends in Berlin that work in the government, in solicitors' offices, and in small companies. It's not a common thing to take private phone calls during work. So sometimes I have my clients ring me, oh, I can't reach him. And I said, well, how did you reach out to him? He said, oh, I tried to ring him 3 times this morning. And I'm like, but he's at work. So we don't take phone calls at work. Now, again, I'm generalizing, but you're going to waste your time chasing people on the phone. Just email them and give them 24 hours to get back to you. Again, you don't need to alarm the recruiter then and saying, oh, he's not responding. He will respond once he checks his email, and because also we don't check our personal email at work because we're at work. So, you need to just give it a little bit more time. Is it common to ask to speak to references, or is it via email or formal? So yeah, in the past, it was very much recommendation letters that would be submitted. Nowadays, it's becoming more common to speak to references. If you want to speed up the process, it's probably better to get a recommendation letter, because I don't think you're going to get that much of a different information if you speak to the person face to face or on the phone. Emails, phone, WhatsApp. Daniel M. Yeah.
I think it's related to his former question.
Oh yeah, okay, that's fine.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
So yeah, Don't contact references without permission. Don't go onto LinkedIn to see who was the former hiring manager and send them a message. That's a big, big no-no, and it's actually a big betrayal for the candidate. They want to let their references know that you're going to contact them. I know for you, it's obviously the element of surprise isn't there. You know, you might not get the information you're looking for, but it's a standardized reference process anyway in Germany. You know, you're not really allowed to say anything negative about the candidate anyway. So it's, you know, I mean, yeah, and always email the references, don't ring them. Email them. I would like to schedule a call with you sometime this week, provide time slots, and then wait for them to come back to you. I think that's the best use of your time. For interview face-to-face, always pay the travel cost. That's an expectation. Background check isn't really common in Germany, and assessment centers are not, unless you're working for like a government institution and, you know, they are for the United Nations or whatever, you know, they do assessment centers, but not, or for a bank, but not really for a company. Because again, I think that's seen as a big waste of time.
Sure.
From the candidate perspective.
Okay, so the big question, how would working for an Israeli company feel like for a German person or for an international company? Would a German person want to work for an international company, not to mention an Israeli one?
So there's a few things tied up into this. As I said earlier, a lot of people are used to only working for German companies. They feel comfortable. Again, same as Israelis want to only work with Israelis. In a lot of instances, we have to find Israeli candidates. It's the same for German people. So I think there is, unless you've grown up in the ecosystem and worked for Salesforce or, you know, other big multinationals, there's probably a little bit of a hesitancy. I've noticed, especially with the older cohort, like late 30s, 40s, 50s, and those would be the positions, you know, senior account manager, sales manager for very specific products. Those are the people we're dealing with. So there is definitely a hesitancy. There has been a hesitancy in some candidates. Now, I'd say that maybe I've had maybe 8 candidates over the last 8 years that have said, I would not work for an Israeli company, just for, you know, I don't want to say political reasons, but maybe just, you know, they just don't want to work with Israelis. Or I've had people that have worked with Israeli companies and say never again. So that comes into it as well. So even if you see a profile online and you say, oh my God, this candidate is perfect for us because he already has an understanding of the Israeli culture, he mightn't be interested in you because, you know, maybe he had a bad experience for all the reasons I mentioned. Maybe it was, you know, the experience, the cultural gap was too big. The other thing is, I definitely think younger people would like to work for an international company, but I definitely also see, and that's why we have an IT problem, because a lot of German people want to work for a good cause. So there's a lot of people, they would never work for a petrol company, they would never work for a tobacco company, they wouldn't work for an American company because they're all exploitative. So it's really, you have to, you know, even if your product is kind of very commercial, I think it's always important to appeal on the mission. What are you doing to change people's lives to the better? I think that's what German candidates are very interested in. You know, I mean, you know, just from personal experience, I know that a lot of people would hesitate to work for a big American company that is just looking to make money, you know, so there is a little bit of that. So that again, the familiarity with a German company could be an obstacle, and then going into an Israeli company, and then also that hesitancy, maybe working for. But I mean, obviously the Israeli companies are smaller, but you know, that kind of very commercial element, those would be some of the obstacles. I don't know if I've forgotten if we've discussed something else, Miri, that point.
Yeah.
But again, that's something, sorry, I just want to end. So yes. Then that's something we would always cover in the interview process. This is actually how I start every one of my phone calls with candidates, is really trying to dig deep. And I'm a qualified coach, so, you know, I have a way of asking questions to tease out the information without revealing too much from my side. But I'm really just getting to the core of what is the candidate's value? Does it match with the Israeli value? And what are they looking for, actually? You know, and then to make that.
Thank you, Julia. So very punctual, just on time. Julia, thank you very much. That was really interesting. First of all, I would like to see if there are any questions in regards to hiring. Before we move to the next, we'll take a few minutes break and then we move to the next session about employment law in Germany. And and does anyone have any question? Feel free to write in the chat or just.
Sorry, I already wrote it, but she didn't answer, so sure. I will be very happy to know. Regarding Zing, you said that it has to be everything written in German because it's a German platform. The question is, if I need somebody that knows English proficient and in a very high level, also I can put a description in Zinc in English. It must be in German, although I need somebody that is in English very high level.
No, you can advertise the job in English, but because it's a German platform, you're probably not going to get many replies because, as I said, in a lot of sectors, the candidates don't actually speak fluent English. So they're probably going to look at it and say, oh, no, I don't want to work for a foreign company. Now, of course, they're going to...
It's the best platform when there are Germans that are proficient in English. It's not...
I would say it's LinkedIn because they are on LinkedIn because they want to work for an international company.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, again, this is just from our experience, you know.
That's actually a good thing because it's part of the screen. If we are a global company and we're looking for someone to be able to join a global team, then we want him to know English and be comfortable with it. So
yeah. So you might get, if you advertise in German, you might get lots of applications and then you get on the phone with them and they don't actually speak good enough English.
Yeah, so it won't help. It's the same in Indeed, Stepstone and Monster. It's the same thing as Zing. It's more like Germans that doesn't know English.
No, you could combine, but they would just be, the job advertisements are just for active job seekers anyway. You're not going to reach the passive job seekers. And I mean, 80% of the people we place, or even 90%, are actually passive job seekers. They're not people that are looking. They wouldn't apply for a job advert. Yeah. We reach out to them. Yeah. I have another question.
That explains why I found very, very quickly in LinkedIn, although everybody just told me it's German are not in LinkedIn, but...
You're cutting out, I would say, I mean, I don't know the number, but I mean, of the workforce, I would say it's not even 10 or 15% that are on LinkedIn. Because as I said, 99% of companies, German companies, or companies in the SME sector are German companies. So why would you go on LinkedIn when everybody in the company speaks German?
Yeah, because you are a global company, so you'll be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a small pool of the people. And again, a lot of my candidates think there's all these Germans and, you know, they all speak English. And then I come with the obstacles or, you know, and say, well, actually, it's a tiny market of people that we're targeting. And you come across the same people in the same sectors over and over again. So just wanted to ask about reaching out to candidates. Is there common practice? Well, I think we already covered that. So I would always go with email, give a lot of information. What I found working in the German market, if you say, hey, we have a cool opportunity for you that could be really amazing, you don't know the person. You don't know if they would think that this is an amazing opportunity. So tell them what you're offering exactly and what you're looking for. And that can already be used as a pre-screening tool. But again, this is a lot of the work that we do where we've worked, you know, over, I mean, I've honed my practice over 15 years, you know, and just different markets. We know exactly what to do, what to say to candidates. Yeah, give information. I think that would be, don't just drop a one-liner and say, hey, we have, we're this company and we love to talk to you. Well, what do you want to talk to me about? And why do you think that's a good opportunity? You don't know me, so there is a way of getting that engagement,
Okay.
So I'll say thank you very much. תודה רבה.
Thank you, Julia. So everyone, let's take exactly a 5 minutes break. You can bring yourself maybe coffee. Thank you so much, Julia. You were a star. Thank you so much. So let's break for 5 minutes and go back for the second part about employment law with Yifat. Thank you very much, Julia. You are the best. Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome back. Yifat, are you here? Maybe it's 1 more minute left. Let's give it 1 more minute. If you still have questions, just so you know, you can email them to me and I'll forward it to Julia and we'll get back to you. We are also going to send you a copy of the slide, the presentation, and as well as a recording of today's session. So don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. Let's give it 1 more minute. I think Yifat is coming back and we can start the next session.
Yep.
Yifat, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, great. So I'm going to, do you want to do it from my screen? I'll share my screen.
Whatever you prefer. I
Yeah.
also have it here open.
You have it? Okay, so I'll let you be the co-host, so it will be more convenient for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, you're now co-host. You can share your screen.
Good. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can. So
Okay.
first of all, I would just say one more word. So Yifat is an Israeli working in HR in Germany. She will tell you all about it in a minute. And I invited her to join us to tell us and talk us through employment law in Germany. In particularly, what I would like Yifat to focus today is basically on what is the common practice compared to the actual law. Because as we all know, a lot of the technological companies would probably give much better, terms and conditions for the employees, as we can find here in Israel. And we want to be, ahead of the market. And as employers, we want to make sure we are giving, the right things, not just what is mandatory by law. So Yifat is going to tell us the mandatory as well as the common practice. So Yifat, if you can introduce yourself in a few words and start your presentation.
Sure. Hi, nice to see everyone here. So yes, my name is Yifat. I'm here in Germany for almost 7 years. Before that, I was working in HR in Israel, mainly in low tech, a lot in Yad Vashem, most of my experiences from there. And so I can say that I know the differences, the cultural differences, but also maybe the law differences between Germany and Israel. As you can see, also, I have a lot of sun behind, but it only looks like a sun. We have 5 degrees, and I checked in Tel Aviv has 23 degrees. And now I also gave you an example of a very small talk that you can have with your new team members, not more than that. Weather is the most common small talk here in Germany. Okay, so let's start to talk about labor law. I will try to cover a lot, but of course, in 1 hour, you cannot cover everything. Feel free to ask questions, just to raise your hand or whatever you prefer. And if not, you can always reach out to me later. Okay, so regarding the contracts, which kind of contracts can we have in Germany? Unlike Israel, in Germany, an unlimited contract is very common and also very expected. So don't be surprised if your candidates will bargain and say, I want to have an unlimited contract. It's very unusual to have a limited contract. If you do offer a limited contract, it has to be with a certain reason, because by law, there are some reasons that you can have a limited contract and other reasons not. In any case, you cannot extend a limited contract more than 3 times or more than 2 years, the first that comes. So after 2 years or after 3 extensions, the contract needs to be unlimited. Normal contracts has by law 6 months of probation period. In this time, a notice period of 14 days is enough. And after that, it's between 1 to 2 months of the notice period. As I said, the law says that it should be an unlimited contract unless there's a reason. And there is a new law from the beginning of August 2022 that a part of the contract or even the contract itself needs to be signed with an ink signature. So also be sure that you're working with a local, lawyer or maybe a recruitment company that can guide you through that, because if you don't follow the law, they might implement in court, in case you reach court, that the contract is not valid, and then you are subjected to a law contract and not to what's written in the contract, which is not so good for you as an employer. What is the common practice about it? So yeah, the common practice is also 6 months of probation period. Usually you don't shorten that, but in some cases it can be shortened with a simple letter in case you agree to that. So there can be some reasons, like, the team member is just saying that they want to buy an apartment, and for that they need an unlimited contract. If you already see that everything is going well with this candidate, you can shorten the probation period, but you don't have to, of course. And it's also very common in German contracts that the notice period is 3 months to the end of the month. So that's what makes the recruitment process maybe a little bit longer, because the person needs to resign from his current role.
Yifat, 2 questions from the crowd. So one, is there an option to have an agreement without probation? Is it common?
Well, I can cover it in my last slide. It is very not recommended to you as an employer. Very not recommended, because it's very hard to lay off someone in case there is a need.
I see.
And I think this 6 months is buying you as an employer a good time to absorb the connection and to absorb the work relationship between the two parties, right? So I would not recommend it at all, although of course it is possible, of course.
Okay.
I will
And-
not.
Sorry,
yeah.
and also one more question. If is it common to have a past contract signed with ink?
To have which contract signed with us?
Past contracts, Megan Berlin asked, maybe you can explain what you meant?
Megan.
Okay.
So I just wanted to know, past contracts that have already been signed, do we need to, before August 2020, do they need a wet signature?
The contract that has been signed before August, no need to. Only those who started working after August. So if, I don't know, if the contract was signed in June or July 2022, but the candidate only start working in August, then yes, you need to have the Nachweisgesetz, you need to have the additional paper to be signed with an ink signature by the employer and handed out in a paper. You can do it via post also to the team member. This is very important.
This August or in general?
From this August and on, by German law, yes.
Right, so it's okay, at the moment we still can't use DocuSign or any other e-sign electronic.
No, you can use DocuSign. You definitely can use DocuSign for the contract itself. I don't know, are you working with a lawyer? I mean, I think you should maybe try to work with either a lawyer or a recruitment company in Germany to make you understand about the law, because I can talk about it now for ages, but the idea is that Germans really need to have everything written in a written form and also with an ink or a wet signature. And the new Nachweisgesetz, the new law regarding contracts, actually is talking about giving the candidates the opportunity to understand what they're giving up for and what they are actually signed for. So if the contract says you are working full-time, so the additional paper actually shows the other option. You are working in full-time or part-time, and then you have to tick the full-time, and then the candidate or the new joiner really understands the meaning of full-time. That's the idea that stands behind it. And if you have a legal entity in Germany, you should be able to already know that and make them sign with an ink signature for this Nachweisgesetz. If the contract is obliged in Germany. Yeah, I mean, I have to also check what happens if the contract is from an Israeli company. So maybe I will check that and I will get back to Miry, and Miry can send you the information. Yeah, because
yes,
I think by German law, you definitely from August 2022 have to have the contract and also the additional or only the additional page signed with an ink signature.
Yeah, this is what I know for years, that we always have to hand sign it, and yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you can keep on using DocuSign for the contract itself. Only the additional page that sums up the terms, that needs to be signed with an ink signature by the employer and be handed also via post to the candidate on the day that he starts or before. That's the idea. Okay, I don't want to talk about students or mini jobbers because I assume you will not hire this type of employment when you're hiring from Israel. But I do want to say one sentence about freelancers. So by law in Germany, a freelancer is a freelancer that cannot be employed by the company. If he has the terms as if he was employed by the company, for example, he's working full-time with you, that means he could have been employed by you, and the government can say, why didn't you just employ him directly? So with freelancers, please make sure not to have contracts with them for over 6 months or over 20 hours a week. And that way you keep yourself safe from not hiring him, from not pretending to hire him. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. And Miri, you tell me if there's questions because I cannot see them.
Yes,
okay.
I'm on it. I'm on the questions. Don't worry.
So as Julia has already mentioned, a lot of employees in Germany are not really from Germany. They're from other countries. So what you have to check before the employment, you have to check that they really have a valid visa and that they have health insurance and tax number here. Without this, you won't be able to hire the candidate. As an outcome of having all of this, and the social security number comes a bit later, it's not a must for the first or the second payslip. As an outcome from this, they of course have to be registered in the Ministry of Interior, because without that, they won't be able to have a health insurance membership and so on. And a lot of companies would also like them to have a European bank account, but this is all about what your company policy is. If one of the things that I've just mentioned is missing, especially of course a valid visa, then it would be very complicated to hire the person. And then I would, if you really want this candidate, I would suggest talking to someone who's very experienced about the other opportunities that you can have with this candidate. Okay, so regarding the payroll and social contributions deductions, so the social contributions are divided exactly half and half between the employer and the employee on the payslip and being conducted by the health insurance company. There's only one professional accident insurance that only the employer pays for. But as you can see, the health insurance, the social security is divided to four major pillars, I can say. One is the pension, one is the health insurance, one is the nursing care, and the other one is the unemployment, when the employer's cost would be around 20%, 0.925. So the employer costs above the brutto, and the employee cost would be around 19%, 0.3. Income tax, I just put a little bit of information here. So we are being very highly taxated here in Germany, but also the government is very social, and of course you're getting it back in different ways, but the rates are between 14 to 42% of tax. I also added here a brutto netto calculator that you can open and just, play with it, put the brutto that you're offering to the candidates, and then see if how many deductions. The law also requests to offer to all the team members private pension plans above of the statutory pension contributions. You have to offer that, and by offering that, it means that if the team member chooses to have it, then his contributions will be deducted from the payslip. You don't have to have contribution on your side as an employer, but a lot of companies are also, as a benefit, offer the employee to cover 10 to 20% as well from the private pension plan. Okay, let's go to vacation days. So by law, vacation days in Germany are 24 for 6 days or 20 days for 5 days a week. So the minimum you can offer is 20 days if the company is working 5 days a week. Usually it can be carried to the first quarter of the next year, but only if there were operational needs. Okay, so the company does not have to carry over the days. It's only if the company's policy. So some companies are saying, okay, let's allow this and let the people enjoy their vacation days also until March, the end of March on the following year. But also the team member can come and say, I couldn't take my vacation days. I was asking to take them and my team lead said no. then he can also carry that over. Only for you to know, Germany has between 10 to 12 public holidays per year, but it's different days, you know. So we have 16 federal states. Each one of them have different days. It's not always the same day in Germany, but approximately between 10 to 12. And about the common practice on the vacation days, we do not offer here in Germany 20 vacation days usually. It's very low, and a lot of candidates would probably bargain about that. So the minimum you would offer, I think, in order to give a good offer would be 24 days for 5 days a week. A lot of companies are also offering 28 or 30. There are some companies that are offering 24, but also offering anniversary days, an additional 2 or 3 days every completion of 1 year, up to 30. It's very rare, but of course, some companies are also offering 32. And as I said, as a common practice, allowing to carry over unused days is something that is very common here in Germany. Although the companies that are offering 30 days are sometimes eliminating this option, because if you carry over even 5 days, it means that next year you have 35 vacation days to use, which is already a lot and almost impossible. Sick days, it might come as a surprise for you, I don't know, but in Germany, the sick days are unlimited. One can take unlimited sick days over the year.
Yifat, do people take advantage of that from your experience? Yes.
Yeah, people do take advantage, and you can also not fire someone for when he's sick, of course, but after they come back, you cannot say that the reason this person was fired is because they were sick. But there's, of course, ways to get over it. Maybe first I'll explain a little bit how it works, and then I'll tell you the ways of going over it. So by law, it's unlimited. The company, also don't be surprised if your team member is sick and is handing you a sick note of a week. It's very common here. The doctors are also automatically giving a sick note of a week to people that are complaining that they have a flu or something. So if the company has more than 30 team members, then the company pays for these sick days. If the company has less than 30 days, then they can not pay. They can stop the payments. If, let's say, the person had 3 sick days in the month of November, and now we have to pay November payroll, we can deduct 3 days, and then the team member goes by himself to the health insurance and receive the money back from the health insurance. So this is very common to do, but only if the company is less than 30 team members. If the company is more, as I said, the company is covering over these days up to 6 weeks, up to 42 days, including weekends. Then the health insurance is taking over and paying between 60 to 67% if it differs between, you know, the family status of the, sorry, it's not the net, of the brutto income. If someone is sick more than 6 weeks and then maybe additional few weeks, usually it happens because, I don't know, it can be because of a burnout or maybe because of an operation. There can be many reasons for that. It differs between it's very common that the doctor will say, I think you're ready to go back to work, but let's take it easy. And that's called the hamburger model, which means that the doctor, the family house doctor, is offering to the team member to come, I don't know, on the first week on 2 hours a day, on the second week maybe 4 hours a day. Of course, the company needs to agree to this agreement and to sign the document. And once it happens, then the company would pay only for the hours that the person, that the team member came back to work, and then the health insurance would cover the rest. I don't see a lot of cases that these things are happening. Going back to your question, Miri, what I see a lot of times happening is that people take, I don't know, 2 weeks, then go back for 1 week, then go away for 2 weeks. Clearly, these team members are not happy with their position or wherever they are. And I mean, it's not a long-term solution. if someone is taking, and then it is problematic, then what I would do is really set clear OKRs or KPIs to this person and see that although this person is sick, if he's really, matching our goals. If not, then that may be a good reason to say goodbye. If yes, if he is matching that, then yeah, we don't have much to do. If someone is sick for almost 6 weeks, then go back to work, and then again almost 6 weeks, and go back to work, then we can already reach out to the health insurance and say, we want a doctor to examine him again and see what's happening here, because we cannot cope with this situation.
Okay.
And usually after the doctor is coming in and checking the situation, usually they reach out to a point when they say, either you leave your position or you just have to go to work. Okay.
2 questions, sorry. Megan asked if you can repeat how many days of vacation you need to give if you have less than 30 employees?
If you have less than 30 employees, how many vacation days?
Yes.
No, sick days.
Sick days, sorry.
Sick days. Okay, sick days. If you have less than 30 employees, you don't need to pay to any sick day, nothing. So you can actually deduct all the sick days during the year, and the team member need to reach out to the health insurance and collect the money by themselves.
Okay. And Daniel here is saying that more and more companies offer unlimited vacation days, which is becoming more and more common. Would you agree, Yifat?
I see that. I only heard about 2 companies here in Germany, but maybe there are more. I'm sorry, I don't know. I know labor law, but I don't know that. I did hear about it, but I have to say that one of my colleagues that her company went to that said it affected very badly on the team members, because suddenly, I think in Germany, they need to have everything clear. I have 30 days. I'm going to use the 30 days. It's okay for me to use the 30 days because this is my right. And suddenly when it's an unlimited right, they don't know. Can I take? Can I not take? Is it okay that I'm taking? Is it not okay that I'm taking? My colleague took only 24. Can I take 25? It's very confusing.
Yeah.
So she told me that in her company they're doing it now. They started, I don't know, a few months ago, and she said it's very chaotic and people are not happy with it.
Okay.
They want to have their boundary. But yes, it is something that that I hear.
So people keep asking whether we're going to share the presentation. So yes, we are going to share the presentation as well as this recording. So don't worry.
Okay. If we go to child sick leave, so one receives 10 child sick leave per parent per child. So if a family of 2 kids and 2 parents are working, and one of them is working in your company, then you should prepare for 20 child sick leave. Although the partner can give up on their days, and then this team member can take 40 days, and you as a company cannot say no. You must agree, because this is but of course you have to have a letter from the partner's company that says we are giving up on the child sick leave. Okay, but I can tell you that, I don't know, now with a hybrid model, I hardly see any child sick leave notes. So I think what happens is that people are working when their kids are at home, and they prefer doing that than going to the doctor and have the sick note and so on. And not like sick days, normal sick days. Child sick days is something that you can stop paying from day 1. So the health insurance is taking over. But common practice, if we're talking about child sick leave, so a lot of companies are saying we will cover the first X amount of child sick days. So for example, my company is covering 3 days. Okay, so the first 3 child sick days of a team member, He doesn't have to bring a note. We're not going to deduct it from the salary. You can stay at home and be with your child. Also common practice, the first 3 to 5 days of an individual sick leave doesn't require a sick note. Yeah, even though a company of less than 30 team members should have maybe a line in the contract that says, please have a sick note from day 1, because then you don't have to pay for it. Maternity leave and parental leave. So there's not a lot of common practice here. It's more about law because it's already a very good benefit. It's not a benefit, sorry. The law is so pro having kids here. So I see that a lot of people are just using the law, using what the law allows and enjoying that. So the maternity, we call it חופשת לידה, it divides to 2 different parts, maternity leave and parental leave. The maternity leave is something that the team member must take unless they have a written agreement that they don't want to use it, but I've never seen something like that. And it's 6 weeks before the expected birth date and 8 weeks after. And this is being paid partially by the team by the employer and partly by the health insurance. The health insurance would reimburse the company with a 13 euro for each day of these 14 weeks. Parental leave is after the maternity leave, and it's up to 1 year with payment. One can take also 2 years, and then they will have 50% of this 67% payment. Okay, so the mother can decide she wants to take 2 years of parental leave, and then she would get only 33% on these 2 years. So this is also an option, and a lot of people are using this option, but they do have to notify about wanting to take these 2 years 7 weeks later, 7 weeks before the expected birth date. Otherwise, the company can say, we're not sure we're up to it. But in general, as I said, it's 1 year of payment that can be divided, but it's up to 3 years that you as an employer need to keep the position and the salary for when she comes back from her maternity leave, from her parental leave, sorry. And in general, the parts of the parental leave of the limit of the 3 years can be taken until the small child reaches out to the age of 8. The employer can reject the request, but only if there are operational needs. So basically, you should be able to say, yes, you can take now 2 months of parental leave, even if the child is 7 years old. But of course, you can also say, sorry, we need you. We didn't find anyone else to replace you with, and this is not possible. We also have an option of paternity leave when the father or the partner takes so the partner that didn't give birth take also a parental leave. They can take also 2 days, 5 days, 7 days of unpaid leave. But if they want the government to reimburse them with the money, they need to take minimum 2 months, divided either together or divided to 1 month and later on another month, until the child reaches out to his first year birth date. Whoops, sorry. So it actually ends up to 14 paid months of parental leave in Germany for the father and the mother, or for 2 partners. I also have here maternity leave calculator, and I can also add here a very useful, if you need, a very useful governmental document in English. Maybe I'll add it later.
Shosh is asking something I didn't understand. She's asking, up to 1 year parental leave, you mean that I need to pay anyway? I don't think I understand the question, Shosh.
I think I understand, Shosh. I think Shosh is asking if the employer needs to pay the whole first year. So maybe I go back to this one, and I will say that the employer is paying only for the maternity leave, which is only the 6 weeks before and 8 weeks after. And I'm deliberately not saying 14 weeks because sometimes it's 15 weeks even, right? If the expected date is a week before the actual birth date. So that is only the time when the employer pays anything. Then after that, in the parental leave, the employer doesn't need to pay anything, doesn't even need to grant vacation days. The monthly vacation days are being deactivated until the team member returns back to work. I hope it answers your question, Shosh.
Okay, one more question. It's not on this topic, but whether you're going to cover regulation in regards to recruitment process, if there are any, like any law.
Any law about recruitment? Oh,
Yeah.
It's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not a recruiter. I'm not sure about this topic. I'm sorry. I can try to find out with our recruiters in the company, and if there's anything, I'll get back to you.
One, you can we can take it privately later. I mean, as much as I know, also there are not any other rules that you need to apply to, but we can take it, you know, privately afterwards.
I can maybe privately with the person that asked, but also
Yes.
I can maybe say that of course you should avoid, like in Israel, asking any personal questions.
Yeah.
Personal, like, do you have kids? Where do you live? Is also a personal question, because then they can say, oh, you didn't take me because I'm living outside of the city and you're thinking it's going to take me a long time. So yeah, I would avoid, I would be very professional and avoid any private questions, but also regulations. I'm not so sure. I don't want to go into it because I'm not so sure I'm profi on that. There's also the option of taking a sabbatical leave, which is an unpaid leave. It doesn't have to be a year like in Israel, or maybe Israel have other regulations that I don't know of, but it's actually a time when the team members say, I need a break. It's been too much for me and I need a break. But if one is taking a break of over 30 days a month, 30 days in a row, then all the social contributions after this, from day 31, are not being paid to him anymore. So a lot of team members, if they want to take more than 30 days, or even just 31 or 35 days, or of course 2 or 3 months, then they don't want to reach to a point when they have no income and they have to pay the social contributions by themselves. So the government have a solution for that. It's called sabbatical. It has to be pre-agreed. You don't have to agree to that as an employer. But once you do agree, you have to talk to your payroll provider to make it on a right manner. And then it means that the team member is actually working full-time, or he's full-time until the sabbatical starts date, but only receiving 50%. So it's like saving money to the time when he will be on sabbatical. So this is a very great opportunity for people, I don't know, to go to a long, I mean, a lot of the German team members are not doing the after army trip, and they're really eager to do something for 2 months. This is a great opportunity for them to work full-time before the trip, not work at all at the trip, but still being paid, and still we, the employer, are still paying them the social contributions. So this is a nice benefit. The law doesn't state anything about any kind of special leave like moving day, wedding, but I can tell you what most of the companies here are granting. So for moving apartment day, I would say between 1 to 2 days would be really nice from the employer to offer. Also 1 day. Wedding, between 1 to 7 days. That is what employers here in Germany are offering. Birth of your child, when you're not the one who's giving birth, between 1 to 7 days. As I said, the law requires nothing from you as an employer. Bereavement leave. This is also something very cultural, because we used to have at least 7 days of mourning. And in Germany, it's not the case, right? So you don't get to have the bereavement leave to mourn. But a lot of companies are offering between 2 to 3 days, and then maybe an additional half day for the funeral itself, and so on. And of course, very big, let's say wealthy companies will also offer sometimes 14 days, right? But most of the German companies are offering between 2 to 3 days. Yeah. I also gathered here some benefits in high tech. Yeah, and why am I saying in high tech? Because I'm not so sure I know the benefits that are offered in the low tech companies, the companies that are here already for 20, 30 years. I'm not sure what they're offering, but I had a little, research on what the German German high tech companies are offering. So learning and development budget, very, very common to offer, between 300 to 1,000 euros a year. Of course, if you hire someone, if you decide that the company is offering 300, but you hire someone at the end of September and they have only 3 months, so you would offer less, of course. By law, you are obligated to offer 5 days of learning days a year, but it has to be from a very qualified specific institute. So, for example, if I'm doing my BA, so my university is a qualified institute, or I don't know, some governmental courses. But if one wants to have learning days that is not related to this, so a lot of companies are offering that. And it's very common to offer. Travel ticket is also common to offer, to subsidize half of it or even give the whole amount. Gym membership, we have a Urban Sports Club, which is very, very common here in Germany to offer. This is like a membership of a lot of gyms here in Germany that people can go, like climbing walls and swimming pools and so on. So a lot of companies are using that. Language lessons, I didn't see any company that not offer that. There's also a lot of online tools for that. So you don't have to have a personal tutor. Product discounts. If your company has a product, it would be very nice to offer. Home office setup between 500 to 1,000 euros. A lot of companies, but also are also asking for the equipment when the person is resigning. So, for example, if I use the 500 euro for a chair and the monitor, the company can say, okay, when you resign, bring it back to us. But it's not a mandatory. Lunch subsidized, I put like a question mark here because it's not very common in German. I know that in Israel, it's very common to have like this card at 10 bees and things like that. Here in Germany, it's not common. It's very common to have fruits and snacks at the office and drinks, of course, coffee and light drinks, sometimes even beer, and have a yearly budget for team lunch. So, for example, every quarter, all the team go out for lunch for 25 euro a person, for example. But it's not common to have lunch subsidized. There is a card that just launched 6 months ago. Maybe it's something that would catch in the future, but for now, it's not. Team activities, yeah, most of the companies are offering learning activities or gathering activities at least twice a year. There are 2 parties a year. Christmas party is a must, and usually it's a very, very big one, and a summer party. These are 2 that most of the companies have. Christmas gifts, I just thought that most of you don't really have an office in Germany, and we have a card that is like you can buy a gift card, and you can also send it per email, and it's a very good opportunity for you as Israeli employers to send via email a card, even when someone gives birth or I don't know, whatever you want to give money. Instead of giving it, you can give it as a gift card, and this gift card covers a lot of shops and also Amazon. It's a very common one. You can also put your logo on the card. It's a really nice one. So I just added here a link. Yearly bonus is also a question. I don't know if it's common in your company to give a yearly bonus. I would give it also. If not, then not. Not all the companies can give a yearly bonus. And as I said before, private pension plan, it's very common to give the employer contribution between 10 to 20% of the additional plan. Are there any questions? No. Okay. So, and this is the end always, right? The resignation and termination. If we started with hiring, we're finishing with resignations and terminations. So by law, as we said, if the contract doesn't state anything else, the 6 months of probation period, you have 14 days of notice period. And after that, you have by law 4 weeks of termination with a reason that can be proven in court in case he goes to court. If the company is less than 10 people, it's very easy to let go of someone because you don't have to give a reason. But if it's more than 10 people, then you have to have a reason when you send a resignation, termination letter for someone. Common practice regarding resignations. So the 6 months of probation period can also be shortened, as I said, but why is it not recommended at all? Because as we see, it's very hard to it's very hard to send a resignation letter, to terminate a contract. You really have to prove why, because it's an unlimited contract and you really have to have a long process. If someone is not providing, then you really have to have a process to prove that this person is not really doing what he's supposed to do. So it's not an easy process. I would keep the 6 months because we do see in a lot of cases that it helps a lot. You can send a termination letter 14 days before without any reason. After that, it's much harder. In common practice, as I said, 3 months of notice period, not only 1 month. And in cases you want to let someone go, and you see that you cannot say that it's because he was not, sorry, you don't have a documentation about his performance, and you cannot really argue in court that he was not performing. So I would highly recommend a cancellation contract, and it's very common here in Germany. So it's a mutual agreement with the team member. So for example, if the termination period is 3 months in advance, the notice period, so now you can tell him, okay, let's decide, we're telling you 4 months in advance and also adding severance package. Most of the team members would say, yes, let's go for that. And then it would be much easier. Once they sign it, he's also signing that he would not go to court. So it's much easier to have this kind of termination. So this was almost everything. There's of course a lot of other things. Any questions?
Now is the time for questions, everyone.
So there is, recently there was published grant that companies can give to employees up to 3,000 euros that the government has decided to make it tax-free. And I was wondering how many companies are using it and to which extent. Is it to the full amount of 3,000? Is it in one time or divided to a few installments, or in general, how many companies are you aware, and specifically in the IT industry?
Yeah, so this is the Inflationsprämie. This is actually a bonus that the company needs to give, not need, of course, but if the company is granting a bonus to the team member, then the government said, yes, up to 3,000 euro, we will give you this tax free, but also social security free, by the way. So it's really any kind of contribution free, which is a very nice thing from the government to offer, but actually there was a lot of criticism online from this decision because the company didn't really think about how to support financially. So companies that are not granting any kind of bonus don't really know what to give to their team members if they don't have the money. Think about a company of 2,000 employees, not such a big company, but they weren't planning on giving bonuses. Suddenly they feel like they really have to give a bonus and they need to explain their team members that they cannot really, follow this new, very nice idea of the company. I think this is a very good benefit for companies who are usually granting bonuses. Regarding your question about how it can be paid, so you have to tell specifically to your payroll provider that it should be called inflationspremie because of the inflation. So inflation.
Yeah, it's for the
exactly
energy
the rate of
rate,
the prices,
inflation.
and it can be paid either in one-time payment or few time, like monthly or quarterly or whatever, until the end of 2024. So you have actually 2 years and almost 3 months to pay this amount of 3,000 if you wish to pay that, if an employer wishes to pay that. And of course, an employer can decide whether they want to pay the whole amount or maybe divide it by part-timers and full-timers, or maybe connected to the minimum time of the team member working in the company. Unfortunately, I don't really know what other companies are doing. I cannot really answer this question, but I know that a lot of the low-tech company, at least, they're really complaining about this. And it has to be outside of the payroll. You cannot decide that it's a part of the payroll. So you cannot actually deduct the payroll in 3,000 euro 1 month and, go over find a solution to the idea. Unfortunately not. Any other question?
Okay. So again, very punctual. We can tell you've been in Germany. So first of all, thank you so much, Yifat, for volunteering your time to make this happen and sharing all the information, which was very useful. It was very insightful for me, and I'm sure for everyone else. So thank you all for arriving today and sharing your last 2 hours with us. I know you're very busy and you probably have tons of other things to do. So I appreciate your time. And in any case, we're going to send you both the presentation, as I said, and the recording of this session. And if you need to hire people in Germany or anywhere else on the globe, feel free to reach out to me directly. And thank you very much for your time and have a great day. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.